On the first day of Flerfmas, Flat Earthers Fallacied. All right, I'll spare you the singing. Welcome to the 12 Fallacies of Flerfmas. A few days ago, Austin Witsit posted the game plan of the fallacies he intends to perpetrate in his debates. Austin plagiarized the descriptions of these fallacies from all over the internet, carefully omitting parts of the text that points out specific things that flat earthers often do. And what better way to celebrate the joys of the holidays than to go through 12 examples of these fallacies? On the first day of Flerfmas, flat earthers fallacied one appeal to emotion. Appeal to emotion is characterized by the manipulation of the recipient's emotions in order to win an argument. Austin plagiarized this from Wikipedia to show us all how to appeal to emotion. I present to you Daniel Pratt.
All you Disney and NASA fans have been reveling in and championing and idolizing for decades. You're f***ing clowns. You're Luciferian cult following fucking clowns. Not a fucking man among you.
On the second day of Flerfmas, flat earthers fallacied 2 poisoning the wells. This is to commit a preemptive ad hominem attack against an opponent. That is to prime the audience with adverse information about the opponent from the start, in an attempt to make your claim more acceptable or discount the credibility of your opponent's claim. Austin plagiarized this from slAOlGkzv.com. Flat earthers hate Einstein. They have no way to refute anything he ever did, so resort to this fallacy. So many Flerfs do this that it seems like they share a script.
Einstein, how he's an idiot. Yeah, and he was. He's dumb as a rock. Einstein.
Does anyone else see the irony in Arwen calling Einstein dumb as a rock?
Oh, no. So, he also apparently, Einstein married his cousin twice.
Einstein did marry his cousin, but just once. His first wife wasn't his cousin. But Flerfs don't do their own research. Marrying cousins is strange, but not illegal in Germany, even today. It's actually kind of common in Germany. Does marrying his cousin invalidate the theories of special and general relativity?
No! So Elsa and Albert Einstein were actually first cousins.
Yep, or marrying his cousin, or
he was married to his first cousin.
Oh, Einstein married his cousin. Because of course I'm not saying that because Einstein married his cousin, what he said is wrong. I just expose him because I think he's super weird and he's a grabbler and he should be exposed.
For reference, in Tennessee, where Witsit grew up, it's still legal to marry your first cousin. And I can happily say that it's not legal to marry your first cousin in Minnesota, where I live.
Einstein married his cousin.
Einstein married his cousin.
Huh?
Yeah, he married his cousin.
Does anyone find dearth super creepy?
Huh?
Yeah, he married his cousin.
On the third day of Flerfmas, flat earthers fallacied 3 affirming the consequences. Affirming the consequent is a fallacy of taking a true conditional statement and invalidly inferring its converse, even though that statement may not be true. Austin plagiarized this from Wikipedia. So consider this statement. Air pressure can be maintained in a physical container. Therefore, the necessary antecedent of pressure is a physical container. This is a perfect example of affirming the consequent. There are many other ways to maintain pressure, like gravity.
The necessary antecedent to have gas pressure in the first instance is a container.
Gas pressure. The necessary antecedent is a container.
The natural antecedent for pressure is containment.
There is no evidence for gas pressure without a container.
Necessary antecedent of a container?
The necessary antecedent for pressure is the container.
To have gas pressure, it is a necessary antecedent to have a container.
Air pressure requires a container.
The necessary antecedent is container.
Spectroscopy needs to be in a container.
On the fourth day of Flerfmas, flat earthers fallacied 4 appeals to authority. This is where it's argued that because a perceived authority figure believes a proposition to be true, that proposition therefore must be true. Austin plagiarized this from intelligentspeculation.com. You see, flat earthers love to find an authority figure that are Flerfs. Then they parade them around appealing to their authority. In the video, Flatten the Curve, this is done repeatedly. In this clip, Brett Freeman is claimed to be an aeronautical engineer. But I looked him up. He's just a mechanic. So this is even worse. It's an appeal to a false authority. Also in this video, we hear from Joshua Silva. The U.S. Airmen database is publicly searchable, and Joshua's name was published in the documentary, so I looked up his name in the database. Joshua is a real pilot. He is even on LinkedIn showing that he's a pilot. Unfortunately, in the video, he parrots the same tired nonsense that all the other Flerfs say. He doesn't show how he uses flat Earth charts to plot flight routes. No doubt he uses globe-based charts to plot routes. On the 5th day of Flatmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 5 gold shifting the burdens. Shifting the burden of proof is the fallacy of putting the burden of proof on the person who denies or questions the assertion being made. The source of the fallacy is the assumption that something is true unless proven otherwise. Austin plagiarized this from City University of New York website. Now, Witsit himself is one of the largest perpetrators of this fallacy.
And when you make a positive claim, you have what's called the burden of proof. You have to substantiate your claim with evidence.
All evidence has shown us that the Earth is stationary.
When you make a positive claim, you have the burden of proof. There's a higher concentration of gas being introduced at the surface. The person making a positive claim has the burden of proof. It's geocentric. That means the center of everything. It's stationary, of course, meaning not moving. It's a geocentric stationary plane. When you make a positive claim, you have the burden of proof.
And if the Earth is geocentric and stationary,
It's very simple. When you make a positive claim, you have the burden of proof. Did you guys know the Earth's not a spinning ball? It's actually flat and stationary, bro. You make a positive claim of specificity, you have the burden of proof of specificity. Because there's constantly gas being introduced to the system. They shift the burden of proof. The Earth is stationary. You do understand, again, that positive claims require the burden of proof. Hey, the Earth's a geocentric stationary plane. Positive claims have the burden of proof. It's a closed dynamic system with gas constantly being introduced to the surface level. You make a positive claim, you have the burden of proof. And they use something called the stereocycle from the Chaldeans from 2500 BC to this day at NASA to be able to predict the eclipses. They cannot use the heliocentric model to predict eclipses at all. You have the burden of proof to substantiate all of those specific positive claims. Hey, the Earth's not a spinning ball, bro. It's a flat stationary plane. You have the burden of proof of specificity of your specific claim. So you can't shift the burden of proof. That's called shifting the burden of proof fallacy. The Earth is a geocentric stationary plane. Now you have gotten to where you are just basically diverting the burden of proof. You're shifting the burden of proof. Burden of proof always lies with the positive claim. When you make a positive claim, you have the burden of proof. Okay, so we have the burden of proof to show that the surface of the Earth is flat, because that is our positive claim.
On the 6th day of Flatmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 6 all or nothings. All or nothing presents a false dilemma by suggesting that there are only 2 options, either all or nothing, when in fact there are many more options in the middle ground between those 2 extremes. Austin plagiarized this one from the Wiley Online Library. Flat Earthers employed several fallacies to construct the claim that they falsified the radius of the Earth. We get to see these later, but in this all or nothing fallacy, we see Flerfs leading the listeners to believe that if they falsify the radius, the only other option is that the Earth must be flat, leaving out the very real possibility that they totally screwed up their measurements.
If the radius has been falsified, your whole damn model, everything about it is wrong.
we falsified the radius value. If the radius value is wrong, the entire model's wrong.
We falsified the radius. We falsified the radius.
We falsified the radius.
We falsified the radius.
And we falsified the radius.
We falsified the radius.
On the 7th day of Flatmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 7 red herrings. This fallacy consists in diverting attention from the real issue by focusing instead on an issue having only surface relevance to the first. Austin plagiarized this from the University of Texas website. About 3 years ago, I debated red pill philosophy. He made some claims about seeing too far, so I asked for details about the weather conditions. Watch for the red herring.
It's a long-distance observation I captured with the P1000. Showing stuff that's not supposed to be visible according to the predicted sphere Earth model.
Did you take into account the actual conditions? Like, do you have the temperature at the
yeah. Well, I go back to my original point. Did Aristotle take that into account when you guys put it in the textbooks for 2,000 years as slam dunk proof we live on a sphere?
I've not written a textbook.
If it was good.
On the 8th day of Flatmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 8 ad hominems. This type of fallacy is sometimes called name-calling or the personal attack fallacy. This type of fallacy occurs when someone attacks the person instead of attacking his or her argument. Austin plagiarized this from Excelsior University. There's nobody better to demonstrate ad hominem than to listen to the sage words of spiritual guru Santos Bonacci.
Then your mother is a fucking whore, because you're a son of a whore. Fucking faggot, Jesuit, Pope, fucking demon cunt, and your whore of a mother. Fuck you and your fucking jabs. He's a degenerate. He will go to hell. His mother's a whore. Up yours. You've been debunked, faggot. You fuck yourself right up, motherfucker. That's what you are. A motherfucker.
He really is.
And that's the lowest degenerate that ever existed. Because you're a degenerate piece of shit.
On the 9th day of Flerfmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 9 begging the questions. Begging the question is a logical fallacy in which an argument's premise assumes the truth of the conclusion. To plagiarize this one, Austin returned to the Texas State University website. Flat Earthers begin and end every step of their research with the absolute requirement that the Earth is flat. All evidence that contradicts this is automatically rejected. This is apparent in their actions, but only a few are clumsy enough to outright say this. I recently debated Jin CBR1, where he makes it clear that he will auto-reject everything that doesn't match Flat Earth.
It's science that's pretending to be science.
Yeah, but what's the demarcation between science and not science?
It's science that is purporting to be, it's pseudoscience, which is fake science.
Yeah,
science that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you've said that
before. The heliocentric model. The heliocentric
yeah, you're
model
begging the question, but what is the actual demarcation between science and not science?
Well, it must fit the reality that we live, of course. Science represents
has to fit your
the reality we live. It has to adhere to the scientific method, okay? And that scientific method must follow the reality we live in. If it's not, it's rejected.
On the 10th day of Flerfmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 10 Texas sharpshooters. The Texas sharpshooter fallacy is based on the metaphor of a gunman shooting the side of a barn, then drawing targets around the bullet hole clusters to make it look like he hit the target. It illustrates how people look for similarities, ignoring differences, and do not account for randomness. Austin plagiarized this one from Investopedia.com. Flat Earthers launched the Texas sharpshooter fallacy to orbit with their claimed Black Swan revelation. In this fallacy, the Flerfs found a rare occurrence of seeing the horizon farther than an oil rig during a very specific atmospheric condition, and treat it as if it were the norm. The source video even makes it clear that this happens once in a while, not very often. You can see the heavy refraction causing the straight cranes on the oil rig to be heavily warped. These Texas sharpshooter conditions ignore the thousands of other times when you cannot see the horizon behind the oil rigs. It also ignores all other examples where the horizon is front of distant objects, just as the globe requires, and is impossible on flat Earth. On the 11th day of Flerfmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 11 billion metric tons of incredulity. The argument from incredulity is a logical fallacy that occurs when someone concludes that since they can't believe something is true, then it must be false. Austin plagiarized this from effectiveology.com, but missed the T on the first word when he copy-pasted the text. You will also notice that Austin left out an important part of the description that describes Flerfs perfectly. For example, someone using the argument from incredulity might claim that since they don't see how a certain scientific theory could be true, then it must be false. People often use arguments from incredulity in an attempt to discredit valid theories that they disagree with, and in order to support various unfounded pseudoscientific theories. You know, like Flat Earth. For this, we go to the man, the myth, the legend.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. CC here, Chris.
That's right, Chris from Westchester County brings his fire hose of not believing science wherever he goes.
I don't believe that that's physically possible. That's bullshit. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. That's why I don't believe it. I don't believe it's a solid object up there. I don't believe that.
And as a special bonus, CC also doesn't understand anything.
Well, that's funny, because us flat earthers don't understand how... I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. I still don't understand. Just don't understand. I just don't understand it. Still don't understand it. It upsets me. I just don't understand. Don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand that. I just don't understand. I just don't understand. You know, I really don't. I don't understand.
On the 12th day of Flatmas, Flat Earthers fallacied 12 strawmen. A strawman fallacy occurs when someone takes another opponent's argument or point and distorts it or exaggerates it in some kind of extreme way and then attacks the extreme distortion, as if that is really the claim the first person is making. For his final plagiarization, Austin returns to Excelsior University. Almost every single flat earth argument about the globe is a strawman. They don't understand middle school science, so it's hard for them to get anything right. They screw up how gravity works.
So, what makes all the oceans stick to a spinning ball and not just fall off the bottom?
They don't understand conservation of momentum.
Well, as you could see here about on this line, the Earth would be rotating at 792 miles an hour. Why exactly does this speed matter? Well, that would be because airplanes travel anywhere between 547 and 575 miles an hour. That simply is not fast enough to keep up with the rotational speed of Earth.
Flerfs use 8 inches per mile squared for bottom-up obstruction instead of the correct formula. One of their favorites is the Chicago skyline. They always miss the little problem that the bottom 300 feet of Chicago must be flooded on flat Earth. And for the final example, I asked my co-host Del to do a little skit to show how ridiculous Flerfs can be when they strawman the globe. I have to warn you though, he mocks Flerf stupidity pretty aggressively here. He's from Scotland, it's just what they do.
Today we shall be working on natural science. The white suit and the glasses and the apparatus means that I'm a scientist. Okay? Now you should be taking me seriously now. Upside down doesn't matter. We'll even give it an indentation to see if we can create the mound. Now, as you can quite clearly see, the water is not mounding to the shape of the ball. The water is staying level. Here is a basic model that I can start to work with of how the Earth could possibly be. This is your globe, okay? The only way that the globe or anything like it would be reality was if we all lived here on the top and we had one ocean, like so. Okay? Because if you go, oops, it runs off. Are we getting this shit? You know, I'm just like a scientist.
If the 12 Fallacies of Flerfmas has laid a great big Yule log of joy in the hearth of your heart, please let me know which was your favorite in the comments.
I'm just like a scientist.